Hello and welcome to a new episode of Photography Behind the Scenes. In today's session, I'm out on a foggy night exploring a neighborhood I already showed you in summer. Maybe you remember the video. It was a warm summer night and I got some decent shots in this area, but I really wanted to come back here when it's foggy, and that is this video. As the day ended and the air was becoming a little hazy, I thought this might be my chance, and a couple hours later the conditions were perfect, so I came to this place. I started out on this road where I got a simple shot looking down it with a car approaching me. This is the photo, and I think this is like a warm-up photo. It's fine and the atmosphere is great, but it's nothing special for these conditions. I also got this one with a cyclist who just passed me in frame, and this one is better, I find. The subject isn't as aggressive in the composition as the car's headlights. Then I walked down the road and found this other road to my left where the lights were less orange and just more neutral. I set up another simple center-focused composition and got this here. This too feels a bit like a warm-up, nothing to be satisfied about yet. The composition is on the brink of boring here because it's so simple. Not to say that simple is bad, not at all. I'm just trying to turn up my self-criticism when it comes to nights like these, when the conditions basically guarantee a great atmosphere, which of course makes photography easier in that part. So to not be too easily satisfied with everything, I think it's important for me to view these types of shots more critically. Something I thought could be interesting in the composition is the house on the right, however I think it didn't really work so nicely. I like the light, but the gate and the yellow thing glowing behind it don't really suit the photo in my opinion. After that, I decided to explore this road with the more neutral lights to avoid the overly orange lit road. I walked a bit and came to this spot here where I found my next subject. Yes, it's bins again. I don't know what it is with these bins, but I think they have a very photogenic aesthetic, okay? So this is the shot I got, and this one I like a lot. The first thing that makes this one more interesting for me is the new angle. It's not yet another straight photo like the last two, instead I came from the side here while still keeping enough of the road in the composition to not lose the depth that roads generally create in photos. The subjects here, the three bins, I think do a great job. What I enjoy here specifically is this imbalance between the two big bins and the smaller bin on the other side of the road. They stand in relation to each other and create a sense of tension, which I find more interesting than having one subject in the middle, such as in the first photo of the car. One more thing I'd like to point out here, simply for the sake of appreciation, is the lighting. The lighting here consists of two street lamps only, which by itself wouldn't exactly be intriguing in any way, but thanks to the fog, we can clearly see the light's path. Lastly, I also got a closer shot, but I think I prefer the first one, for no particular reason, it just feels better. Then, further down the road, I did want to make one simple photo just looking straight down the road again, but this time run into frame myself to have a clear and intentional subject. I also had my torch with me to add another layer of interest to the subject. Here's the result, and I'd say it worked out great. It's simple, yet the subject in this one makes it much better than the previous photo that looked straight down the road. I enjoy how the torch creates this extra source of light with its own unique light color, but the light itself is not pointing into the camera directly so that my silhouette is still clearly visible. From the shot I got here, this is another one I like. The sideway position here is an interesting alternative, however, unfortunately, the light from my torch doesn't add much to this photo, so my preference is leaning to the first one. Then I walked all the way to the end of the road where this street meets another street. At the junction, I spotted a scene that had some potential in my eyes. It was yet another bin, so what intrigued me here was the lighting. The street lamp seemed to create such a beautiful atmosphere, and the scene itself had so much potential thanks to the bin standing at the road in front of the parking area of the house behind it. Here's the shot. Do you get what I mean? The bin clearly stands out as the subject here, for me at least, thanks to its unique green colour and the smooth texture. Everything else here has more of a brownish tone, and then the light is positioned perfectly on the other side of the road with the forest behind it. Therefore, the light looks like it's not omnidirectional anymore, but instead it's highlighting the bin and also slightly the house behind it, which gives us some more context of the scene. Please let me know what you think about this shot, because I really don't know if I'm alone here, but I adore this one. The scene is so peaceful, and my luck here with the lighting creates the perfect atmosphere. After that, I walked down this road I had come to and found another interesting scene with a house. It's a bit hard to see in the GoPro footage, sadly. What caught me here was the house behind the bush here. The house emits this strong orange light from its entrance, which, thanks to the fog, creates this sort of flare that rises above the bush. I set up a composition and then set the intervalometer on the camera so that I could walk up to the house and behind the bush on the other side of the road to add another light source in the scene with my torch. This is the result, and I love how this turned out. This is a photograph for the lighting, I suppose. The composition is fine, but it's not what I appreciate the photo for. The house is not clear, as if it were hiding behind the bush, and the tree on the right helps to frame this scene. What I adore here is the interaction of the three different light sources. Number 1 is the light from the house, number 2 is my torch, and number 3 is the light from the street that gives us some detail in the left corner. Now, in the photograph, you can clearly see what I was meaning when saying that the house's light seems to rise above the bush. The light from my torch is what I think makes the scene all the more intriguing. It creates a sense of mystery because it doesn't look like a car's headlights, so I begin to wonder what is going on behind the bush there. This scene works for me because it gives me a bunch of hints but no clear answers. Then, I continued my walk down the street and found another building emitting some interesting light. This is the photo. So what caught me here was the light shining from inside onto the road outside. That part of the photo worked nicely. However, I find the rest of the photo not so intriguing. Especially the left side could need something so that it's not only this black negative space. But it'd have to be something that isn't too present to not shift the focus away from the actual subject. Then I continued my walk and came to another road where I decided to try to get a shot of the road with a house. This is the outcome. So I'm 100% in love with the atmosphere and the color editing here. As you can see, I shifted the colors to this slightly warm and green tint. I also enjoy how the composition worked out. I managed to get what I was going for, so getting a shot of the whole road, but from an angle to include that house as well. This seems to create this binary focus on two different things in the photograph, which is not really a good thing, I think, but I don't mind it here. However, one aspect that just doesn't work so well here is the house itself. I don't particularly like the look of the house I shot here. I shot it because it was at this convenient position, however, I don't think I would photograph this house on its own. So if that were different here, I think the photo would be pretty good. Then I couldn't resist and got one more shot of the road, this time simply looking straight down. As expected, it's fine, the atmosphere is great, but apart from that, it's pretty basic and not so interesting. But then I decided to walk down to the end of the road where I turned around to shoot the road from there, and at this time run into frame as the subject with hopes to enhance the photo in this way. This is the result, and I think it worked. simply having a person as the subject in the scene makes it so much more interesting in my opinion. I got multiple versions, all are pretty similar. I also had my torch with me, but in this case it didn't make much of a difference in my opinion, and I actually think the shots in which the torch is not visible are better because the subject is more subtle in this case. Then, from where I had set up the camera, I just turned to my right to shoot this scene because I had spotted an interesting light. There was a lamp hiding behind the tree on the right side of the road. The light that shined through the branches looked like separate beams of light, so I tried to picture the scene as a whole and include the light in the composition. This is the result. The scene overall is quite cool I find, and the inclusion of the beams of light also worked, but still in total the scene doesn't intrigue me as much as the previous photos. Maybe a mysterious light from within the forest on the left could make up for that. Then I headed down a small road which led across a field. As I was walking, a cyclist was coming my way and I quickly set up a shot with the hopes to capture the scene. Here's the photo, and I think this one sadly turned out pretty boring. It's no surprise, however, seeing as I set this up pretty spontaneously. The two things I can specifically point out here which don't work for me are the close distance to the lamp and the cyclist. The lamp is too close, and I think some distance would work better in this case. The cyclist doesn't work for me simply because the light is basically just a white spot with a blue glow around it, which is okay but not so intriguing I find. Then, after the cyclist passed me, I decided to walk onto the field to see if there's any way I could shoot this road and its lamps from this angle and from a distance. I found a possible composition and decided to walk into the scene myself again with my torch to light up the field a little. This is what I got, and I think this worked out beautifully. The composition consists of these leading lines carrying the eyes from the field to the lights and the subject on the field. I enjoy how each light becomes smaller in the distance, giving me a sense of depth in the photo. The torch worked well again in this photo, adding a different light source and shining its blue light onto the field. One thing I still haven't decided on, however, is the aspect ratio. I do not like all the negative space in the top third of this photograph. The easiest way to fix this would be to crop the top, however, I hesitate to do so because I actually find the aspect ratio of the photo quite pleasing. It's neutral and a classic photographic aspect ratio. If I would crop the photo, I would either go with a 16:9 aspect ratio or a 1:2.35 cinemascope ratio, which both avert the photographic character of the 3:2 aspect ratio. While I do enjoy using the filmic aspect ratios, in this particular case and overall in recent shoots, I tend to want to keep the aspect ratios photographic, and so for now I've just left it like this. Then I walked back to the road and crossed the field, which brought me to another bigger road. Here I found a couple traffic lights which I thought could be an interesting subject, so I set up a composition. This is what I got, and I think it turned out beautifully. I enjoy the colour contrast between the road and the lights. Overall, I find the scene to feel very calming and peaceful. After that, I crossed the road and tried to get basically the same shot again, but from this side. This one also worked out wonderfully, and I think I even prefer this one. This version feels a bit more tidy, probably because there aren't as many lights in this photo, whereas the first one had a slight mess going on at the top. So this photo just feels even calmer. Then it's time to get the last photo of the scene, but before that I would like to give a minute to the sponsor of this video, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online community for learning, well, skills obviously. They have a platform with thousands of classes for creative people, so this goes from filmmaking, illustration, business, all the way to photography, which I guess is what would interest you the most. So Skillshare is basically a curated collection of video classes in which a teacher shares their knowledge. Because it's specifically laid out for efficient learning, the classes are neatly organized, and there are of course no ads, and additionally they are constantly adding new classes to their collection. So, for example, a class I recently watched was by photographer Porter Yates. In his class, he teaches his process of photography and explains what separates his current photography from what he shot a couple years ago. What I enjoy a lot here is that this was not a technical class, but more about what to shoot and how to choose your subject. So the people from Skillshare have created a link for me to share with you, with which the first 1,000 people to click the link in the description get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So if you think this sounds interesting, I would much appreciate you using my link, because that lets Skillshare know that you're from this community and that I'm doing a good job. So from this junction, I walked onto the parking area here and found an intriguing scene. What I saw was a building which was lit dramatically by the one street lamp that stood next to it. Sadly, the GoPro battery died here, so I didn't film the whole process. This is the photo I got, so as you can see, a couple things happened and changed before I got the shot. I had walked up to the building, triggering a sensor that turned on the round light. At first I thought this was unfortunate, however when I looked at it through the camera, I then found it quite fitting for the scene actually. So I set up the camera and put it into the intervalometer mode again so that I could run into the scene, but not as a subject. Instead, I ran behind the building and lit up the area with my torch to create a mysterious blue hue that you can see right behind the wall. I love the result. There's no clear subject here, which is fine because the scene is the subject itself for me. The scene, the atmosphere, the lighting, and the way they interact is what intrigues me in this photograph. So, with the end of the GoPro's battery power, I decided to head back and end the shoot. This session was long awaited, seeing as I had already decided in summer that this area of town needed to be explored in foggy conditions, and this was the night I finally got to do it. In my opinion, it was a great success. I hope you enjoyed it too. I can't really decide on a personal favorite because many from this session are one of my favorite photos from the whole year maybe, I think. So here are some of the ones that stand out to me. Let me know in the comments which is your favorite if you happen to have one. I hope you had a good time. If so, I'd appreciate a like, consider subscribing if you haven't yet, and I'll see you again next week in the next video. Until then, goodbye.